Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything Pistons, and news writer for Sports Illustrated.
And we are recording here the day after the Pistons unfortunately dropped Game 3 to the Orlando Magic in Orlando. Look, before we even get started, I wanted to throw this out there. Apologies to our live viewers. For the first time that we have been running this podcast, so about a little over almost 2 years now, 2 full seasons though, I actually double booked us without us knowing. I had no idea. For whatever reason, I thought we were going to be recording this here in the afternoon, which obviously now we are. But for our live viewers, that's why we originally had a 11 a.m. Eastern show time. And then very suddenly at around 11 a.m. Eastern, we bumped it back to 2:30 Eastern. Well, that's because we were doing the Pistons Pulse at the same time. And, you know, there's plenty of good podcasts to listen to for you guys. We don't want to make anybody choose or anything like that. So, you know, we bumped this one back. But that's 100% my bad. So apologies to the live viewers on YouTube and Twitter for that one.
Hey, Wes is the busiest man in Pistons podcasting, so we do not blame him.
I wouldn't go that far. That still goes to Bryce in my book. I mean, he's bouncing around like crazy. I just got these two.
That's true, but yeah, just for the listener, I told Wes I was not mad at the later start. Me and my wife were at a wedding last night, so we had a slow start this morning, and just because congrats to my friends Taylor and Colin. Colin's a big Pistons fan, and he listens to the show. So hope he catches this without me having to tell him. And Wes and our listeners will find this funny, but in the ceremony, one of his friends, Kevin, who's also a big Pistons fan, was the officiant, and he dropped a Pistons reference in there. He said, like, Taylor even puts up with Colin complaining about Karis LeVert's shot selection. And I was like, This is the only wedding of all time where we have a Karis LeVert shot selection mentioned. So maybe some ideas for some Pistons fans who are tying the knot on the horizon. I loved it.
Well, now, I mean, look, you can't, if you're a Pistons fan and writing your own vows, you can't say that, you know, you'll be as faithful as to your partner as JB Bickerstaff is to Karis LeVert, because he's kind of out of the rotation. He's not been playing as much as people would have expected. And actually, by the way, he's been playing well when he gets those minutes. So I don't know if that's actually a good thing. But, you know, regardless, you can't even make that Karis LeVert reference either these days. What's going on?
Yeah, we'll get into everything. The rotations are definitely a huge talking point. And yeah, Karis had good 4-minute stretches both in game 1 and game 3, and that was all he got. So we'll dive into all that. Obviously, the series hasn't went how the Pistons and how fans were expecting. So it's still early. They're obviously still in this series, but some work to go and some eye-opening things that we're all gonna get into.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think the best way to go about this is to focus on the specifics. So we're gonna talk about Jalen Duren first, but I wanted to bring that up in the context of, from my point of view with this series, the Magic aren't really doing anything novel here. They're not really throwing too many curveballs at Detroit. This is all more or less what you should have been expecting if you were the Pistons. This is all what they've been seeing all year, honestly, in terms of defensive strategy against them. You know, load up on Cade, pack the paint, all of that good stuff. It's not new. All right. So I say this to say that from my point of view, I don't want to take away from the Magic. I think that they're playing very well, but I don't think that they are forcing the Pistons to play poorly. Omari St. Kofor II had a great article on this morning when he released it. And just basically the Pistons can't get out of their own way right now. I think the Magic are playing well, but I think that the Pistons are not responding to that in the way that they have all season. And they're just not playing up to their own standards. I think, you know, you see this when the Pistons go on a 30-6 run, or they go on the 28-8 run that they did in the fourth quarter to get back in that game for game 3. Like, the Pistons' best is better than the Magic's best. And that's what's been so frustrating, is because the Pistons aren't playing their best for the majority of this series. They let it show for a little bit, and then they fall right back into kind of the old ways, a lot of turnovers and all that stuff. And a big portion of this is Jalen Duren. And, we need to couch this in all of the usual caveats, right? This is a 22-year-old. This is really his first playoff experience where he is expected to be one of the dudes, right? Like you can say that he played in the playoffs last season all you want. Entirely different scenario than this year. This year, the team has expectations. This year, he's an all-star caliber player. This year, he's the second option. He's getting conversation around all NBA, maybe even second or third team, depending on who you talk to with some voters, right? He's supposed to be the dude. If it's not Cade, it's Jalen Duren that's going to win you a game. And he's just not lived up to that yet. And, we can talk about why that's been. We can point out that, he is just 22 years old, and usually young players that aren't named Cade Cunningham are going to struggle in their first real playoff experience like this. But let's just, all that being said, high level, what are you seeing from Jalen Duren so far? And then we could get into some of the specifics of, what the numbers actually are, what he needs to work on, how he can adjust and improve. But just what are you looking at? What do you see from his game at this point? Is this a guy that's in his own head, or are the Magic really doing something to him that he didn't expect?
I think it's a combination of both, but I think we can really look back to what the conversation was with Jalen Duren last year, and even through parts of this year where, Wes, you brought up a lot, like Jalen Duren needs to be more aggressive, get more shots, like play like the second guy on this team and the Robin to Cade Cunningham's Batman. Like in game 1, he took 4 shots and had 8 points on 3 for 4 from the field, got to the line 4 times. I think especially defensively at times, it looks like, the whole team, not just Jalen Duren, has like missed rotations, but you've noticed it a bit with him as the last line of defense when he's out there. And credit to the Magic. I think they're definitely messing with him and not letting him get any easy looks near the paint. Like he was 3 for 10 from the field in game 3 off a guy who shoots nearly 60% from the floor and gets buckets inside. So I do think that the Magic are throwing him off a bit, but I do also think that it's been 3 games where you've seen a pretty similar strategy and you have to adjust to it. And yesterday in game 3, I didn't think it was just Jalen Duren either. Cade Cunningham had 8 turnovers through 3 quarters, finished with 9, and his head didn't seem to be fully in it until he sort of took control in the 4th quarter and steered that run to tie the game. And unfortunately, the Pistons didn't pull it out. But yeah, with JD, I think it's more like a mixture of needing to be a little bit more aggressive, but also it seems like his head's just not fully there. Like it's harsh to say, but as an onlooker, I'm not sure how you could think otherwise.
Yeah, I do think that Wendell Carter Jr., all credit to him. He's getting to him. He's taking Duren out of his game. And it's, again, man, like it's not necessarily that I believe that Wendell Carter Jr. is doing anything specifically to take Duren out of his usual rhythm. I think that Duren is putting a lot of pressure on himself. He was already a little bit tight in game 1. And now we've seen it snowballed because, as much as, Wendell Carter Jr. is a good defender, he's not, Jared Allen. He's not Wemby, right? This isn't a defensive player of the year candidate. This is just a solid positional defender for the Orlando Magic. So I want to read this out to you because I think that this is why this is such a conversation. All right. So in this series so far through 3 games, Jalen Duren is averaging 9 points, 8.3 rebounds, 2 assists on 42% shooting, with 3.7 free throws per game. He is averaging 2 blocks per game, and we can talk about that because there's a pro and a con there for me that I want to bring up. But here's why this is so impactful. All right, guys. So here's his net difference from what he did in the regular season. You're talking a net of negative 10 points, negative 2.3 rebounds, a net neutral on the assists, 23 percentage points less on his percentage from the floor, and 2.4 less free throw attempts. So a negative 2.4 on the free throw attempts. In every metric other than assists, the guy that you have relied on to carry the ship, right, to keep things afloat when Cade went down, to be your leading scorer if Cade was having an off night through the regular season, right? That guy has, unfortunately, kind of wilted a little bit here under the pressure. And I don't know if they can recover without it. You know, like this is vital. They need him to figure this out.
Well, yeah, a big question for any team in the postseason is sometimes it's not clear who the number 2 player is. In the Pistons case, it is very clear. Like the Thunder had this come up last year in the playoffs. But Shea's obviously going to get his, but who's going to be the second guy? Is it going to be Chet? Is it going to be Jalen Williams? Jalen Williams like turned into that guy, had a 40-point game in the NBA Finals. So with the Pistons, when you know it's Jalen Duren and you're just not getting what you need from him, it just puts so much pressure on everyone else, including Cade. And good thing that the Pistons have Tobias Harris, who had 23 points in game 3, and he's had a nice series overall, but I don't think that you can bank on winning any series when Tobias Harris has to do that much offensively. And Asar Thompson had the best offensive half really of his career in game 3, where he had 15 points. Like you just can't rely on that every night. And the stats you brought up, I mean, points relate to it too, but what sticks out to me is this is a guy who shot like 65% on the nose from the floor this year, on 11.5 attempts per game, and he's shooting like 40% so far through 3 games in the playoffs. Obviously not a big sample size, but where this is when it matters most, and the Pistons find themselves behind against the number 8 seed. And I mean, I think the Magic are a tough matchup just because of the similar styles of play. But we've said leading up when we were talking about who the Pistons were going to play, they're more talented than all of these teams. I still think that the Pistons are going to bounce back and win this series, but it's tough to say that this start isn't at the very least eye-opening, where a team we thought could make a run to the Eastern Conference Finals, potentially the NBA Finals. Like you can't win playing like this, potentially against the Magic, potentially and against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So there's a lot of they just need to wake up. And I wish there was a better way to say it, but we saw that great third quarter in game 2. You're really just an incredible run away from being down 3-0 in this series. So they can turn it around. They can do it quickly. I think they will in this series, but yeah, it's definitely impacted how my thoughts on this team moving ahead in the postseason.
Well, and I'll say too, like you say, they're a couple of runs away from being down 0-3. I think they're also just a couple of, wake up and focus moments away from being up 3-0, right? The margin on this series is really slim. The Magic are not beating these guys off the court. The Pistons are pretty consistently playing a below average Piston game here through 3 games. Whereas the Magic are playing, not like 100% of their best, but I think that the Magic have gotten closer to taking their best shot, right, than the Pistons have been, outside of 2 runs. So you could say there have been exactly 2 quarters, in my opinion, out of these 12 so far that they have played, where the Pistons looked like the Pistons that we have come to know. That's not sustainable. You're not going to win a series like that. So, like, again, I think that it's It's not fair. It's not. It's unfortunate. It's not right that all of this is coming down to a 22-year-old center who, before this season, has never had this amount of pressure placed on him, who's never been in his career, as far as I can tell, maybe even going, I guess you could set high school aside, but like in college, he was not a go-to guy, right? But that's who Duren is now. So they need to get him going again. Because I really do think, Richard brought this up in the live chat, but like Tobias Harris is your number 2. That's not no shade to Tobias. That's just not going to get it done. You need Jalen Duren to be the guy that he has been. What I think is what can give you a little bit of optimism is I genuinely don't think he's that far off. He's not playing well. He's playing hesitant. Like you already mentioned, he's not hunting for his own shot as much. Hopefully this doesn't get me lit up, but like it reminds me a little bit of last playoffs from the Knicks perspective. What was so frustrating if you were a Knicks fan with how close all of those games were against Detroit? It was the fact that Karl Anthony Towns couldn't get his butt in gear to bury a team that didn't have a great defensive center. And we're being forced to guard him with a forward that he has massive size advantage over, right? Knicks fans were peeved with Karl Anthony Towns for all 6 of those games, and rightfully so. I think Duren's kind of given the same effect. Wendell Carter Jr. is not a good enough defender to take you out of this. The Magic are not packing the paint more than any other team that they have played at any point this season. What's happening right now is, Richard kind of asks here, how much of the team's performance do you think is mental pressure getting to some of the players? I do genuinely think that's a big part of this for the story for Jalen Duren, and he's just got to work his way through it. Now, I will say, just from like an overarching perspective here, like all of the contract stuff or the idea that he can't be a number 2 now, based on 3 games that we've seen in the playoffs against the Orlando Magic in round 1, I think it's a whole lot of overreaction, because he, again, 22-year-old, first real playoff experience with this kind of pressure on him. If he can't figure it out this year and the Pistons get bounced in round 1, that's going to suck. No question about it. But you have 70 plus games of this guy doing what you want him to do. So at that point, it's okay. How are you going to respond? Right? How are you going to respond next season and in the next playoff series? Because I don't think that one series here for a player this young is going to be enough to say, well, we know he can't be a number 2 in the playoffs. I get the instinct to do that, but I have to say so much of that instinct to do that right now is informed by a bias against that idea in the first place. I shouldn't say nobody. There's a large group of people, especially at the national level, that just do not think that Jalen Duren is capable of that role, even though he had been capable of that role for an entire season up to this point. And frankly, I find that to be a little bit ridiculous. So the fact that we've got a 3-game sample of it not working all that well and him clearly playing like a shell of himself because whatever reason mentally it's getting to him, and the playoffs are a whole different level of pressure, like that happens to young guys. That doesn't mean that they're not going to be a playoff performer in the future, right? It's just about response now for Duren, and he's responded really well in the past. So what I want to ask you, Blake, is what does he need to do to get his feet back under him here in game 4 and 5 and hopefully 6?
I think it is like, it's an easy answer, but I think he just needs to go back to what made this entire season so successful for him. And really what that was is just using your size advantage, using your athleticism against opponents to really dominate. It was even an issue at times in the regular season. Like, we wanted Jalen Duren to take more for his own, and like, to his credit, he's a decent passer for a big. Yes, turnovers have been an issue at times, and I think he might need to be a little bit selfish in games 4 and 5 just to try and get himself going a little bit earlier, and obviously stay out of foul trouble. That's been an issue in this series. So make sure that you can keep yourself in games. But I really do think, because other than game one, he's been getting 10 shots. He took 10 field goal attempts in both game two and game three. I think we both want him to be a little bit more than that. And obviously those games he wasn't effective or efficient from the field. So just use what the Magic are doing against them. I think Cade can do a little bit to help Jalen Duren get going like he's done all season. But yeah, I really do think it just being still, I guess, just wiping the slate clean after these 3 games and sort of forgetting about them, putting them in the back of your head. They happen. There's not anything you can do about it to change it moving forward, and just get back to what you are. Because like you said, the Magic are a good team defensively, but Wendell Carter isn't this like dominant rim protecting center that should totally erase Jalen Duren. Like he should still be able to dominate down low no matter what Orlando is doing. So go out there, be aggressive, and just get your looks, because this team really needs it to work their way back into this series.
For me, I think that this isn't like a simple fix, all right, but they've been doing more in game 2 and 3 to try to get him going, to get him some easier looks. He's just not been confident in it. So I genuinely don't think this is a coaching issue. I don't think that this is a schematic issue. I think this is Jalen Duren needs to remember that he is bigger, he is stronger, and he is quicker than anybody else on that Orlando Magic team. He is. And he doesn't, again, it's not like he has less space to operate here. So I want to throw this one out. So in the regular season, he on drives to the rim, 3.6 drives per game. He had a 99.6 point percentage. All right. So in terms, that's basically a point to drive ratio, right? So in terms of number of drives per game to the number of points he generates per game off of drives, it was almost 1-to-1. And a lot of that was because he was getting to the free throw line. And that's huge, right? That was such a huge talking point for us as Pistons fans all season. Jalen Duren, his free throw line, his foul generation was massive. He was getting to the line over 6 free throw attempts per game, right? And that was big when you just needed something easy, right? You could go to him. You could trust that he's going to try to go through that opposing defender. He'll get fouled. Maybe it's an and one. Maybe it's not, but he's a fairly good free throw shooter. And that's a little bit of easy offense generation, right? What the Pistons need that. They need someone who can go do that. Well, he has on 4.3 drives per game through these 3 games, he has generated 0 free throw attempts on those drives. He's only created 1.3 points in total per game on drives. So that's a 30.8 points percentage. His drives are far less efficient. And to me, what is going on is he's going for the finesse a little bit too much. I think you saw it, right? He tried to throw his shoulder into Wendell Carter Jr. early in the first quarter in game 3, faded back a little bit, but still went to shoot it with his right hand, even though he was on the left side, which is unusual, by the way. He's been really leaning on that left hand a lot this season. Wasn't there for some reason, right? I think that, again, that goes to a confidence thing. But he's using his inside hand to try to do this little like floater about 5 feet away from the hoop, and Wendell Carter Jr. just kind of eats it up because he's able to react to the shoulder and kind of get back and contest the shot. Whereas I genuinely believe in the regular season, what you would have seen and what we did see out of Duren in those exact situations, shoulder in, one more dribble, up off 2 feet strong, right? He did that a ton. Just get back to that. So I don't think that this is schematic. I don't think JB needs to gear up some open looks for him. I think someone just needs to, I don't know, beat it into his head, right? Over and over and over again. Be strong. Go up strong. Go through the contact. Don't bounce off the contact. Try to dunk everything, right? And if he can start getting to the free throw line more, I think that's going to solve everything else in his game. And if I had to bet, I know we haven't seen it yet. I do believe he figures this out. I do.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we have 70 games of him over the season where we saw him do exactly what he needs to do to sort of flip the script around this sudden narrative that's found itself surrounding him. And yeah, just to go back, I've seen a ton of chatter about the contract coming up and stuff like that. I totally agree with you. I mean, because the postseason isn't over. But even if it goes like it is, nothing changes and the Pistons get bounced in the first round, are you really just going to cut ties with your 22-year-old all-star center? You can talk about the amount and everything like that. I don't think much really changes off just one series, because he showed you what he can do, and he really just needs to continue doing more of that in the postseason, and just forget about it, because honestly, it's been a rough series so far for Jalen Duren, and if it wasn't, I think it's a totally different outcome right now. So there's still time to flip it around, and I agree with you. I think he will, because he's the most dominant player on the floor down low. So you just got to go out and do it and not let it get in your head too much, which I'm sure there's a lot in this team's head right now, but they just need to forget about it the best they can. And how bad a game that the collective played. I mean, yes, Tobias Harris and Asar Thompson had nice starts, but how bad a game this whole team played, and you still find a way to come back from down 15, tie the game, give yourselves a shot to win at the end. I mean, I think it says something that you are still capable of this. Like, you are the favorite of this series, and I don't think that changes after the Magic taking 2 of 3 to start the series. So just remember that and just go out and play, and don't let it get too much in your head.
Yeah, agree. And last thing, if I can just to put a bow on it, but like I've seen some conversation with fans online thinking, talking along the lines of how basically old narratives, right, with Jalen Duren, that he can't be the guy that we've seen him be, that it's all about the defense and he's just not a good defender, which is a little wild because he is averaging 2 blocks. I thought that he had 5 blocks in game 3. He was a big part of that fourth quarter run that they did. I think actually him fouling out was a big reason why that run didn't finish on the game. I thought he was fantastic over that stretch. So, hey, if you're looking for a little bit of optimism, there you go. Maybe that's him figuring it out there. But like to say that Duren needs to figure it out, it's worth remembering what it is, right? Because like you said, this is a player who was an all-star. This is a player who, by the way, earned the all-star nod, right? He wasn't just a throw-in. He earned that all-star nod. He's getting conversation as a all-NBA player as well. And maybe he's not actually a top 15 guy. Maybe that has something to do with, who's healthy and who's not this season. But I think at this point, you're pretty confident he's a top 30, top 25 player. So what it is basically taking what he's proven he is as a player and bringing it into the playoffs where the lights are a little bit brighter. That's a much simpler question. We don't have these same questions that we had last offseason when we were talking about what we would look for and want to see from JD. He's already proven the kind of guy that he is, and he's got so much more room to grow to. So I think that you still ought to feel pretty confident taking a bet on this young of a player who's already shown this much growth and has already established himself in the way that he has to figure out this whole different beast of the playoffs. And again, I think that he's going to. I think that he will. So let's take that and transfer into that little run that we saw at the end of game 3. What changed? And we could talk about this with game 2, because game 2 was really won with about 8 minutes of basketball. So what's going on in those runs that isn't happening the rest of the time so far in this series? How can they make that translate, right? How can they be consistent there?
I mean, I think when we have seen these runs, the constants have been you're taking care of the ball. And when the Magic have been able to get out on runs themselves, they've been able to force turnovers. And that's a credit to them because they are a good defensive team as well. So you're doing that, and you're also just leaning into the type of team that you are, which is a great, pretty much elite defensive team who also has debatably the best player in the Eastern Conference who can help you. Who the game is just really slow for Cade Cunningham. He can do whatever he wants at times. And yes, it hasn't been pretty at times over this series specifically, but when the defense is locked down, more often than not, Cade's able to take control of the game and get himself or his teammates the right look. And also you've just seen some shot making from his supporting cast. Like we've already talked about Tobias Harris. He's had a good series. Duncan Robinson has knocked down his shots at times as well. So I think the main things to take out of the runs is like just stepping up on defense, leaning into the team that you are, and taking care of the ball. Because, man, in game 3 to start and really throughout the whole game, other than this run, there have been some turnovers that are just frankly unacceptable and really difficult to watch as a fan of this team.
Yeah, I was going to lean the exact same way. Like with the turnovers, absolutely, especially in game 3 with Cade, like the 8 turnovers through 3 quarters, that was a little uncharacteristic. And it almost looked, I don't want to say sloppy, but maybe tired, which it's a little concerning. You might say there with that. But, the thing with the defense to me is when they've gone on those runs, they've shut down driving lanes. Because that's the thing. That's what this Pistons team has been so good at all year. You can't get in the paint. You can't score on them. And when they've been struggling during the regular season and even now in this series is they're over pursuing 3-point shooters. And that's allowing for easy drives into the lane, easy paint touches. And when you get this team to give up a lot of paint touches, now you're just, that's how you beat anybody, right? You get into the paint, force some rotations, swing, shoot, swing, drive, keep that ball moving. And that's what the Magic have been able to do. I think even with that, it's not like you've seen an incredible offensive performance here from Orlando. So, again, they're a pretty poor offensive team as well. They're keeping you in the games. But what's going right with those runs is, you're right, they shut down the turnovers. And then they shut down these driving lanes. So they're getting more stops. And when you're getting stops, you're kind of out in transition. You're out in semi-transition. You're attacking a team that even if they get set, they're not matched up how they want to be. And that is something that this Pistons team has excelled at all season long. And I think that's where it looks better, I think, offensively. If you could get out and run, if you can have the Magic a little bit unsettled, you can attack some mismatches and kind of go and build out your offense from there. I think that I don't know. Like I feel so dumb because it's like there's no magic bullet here. I don't think there's any deep analysis. What's going wrong? What's going right? The Pistons just aren't playing like themselves. The moment they start, they run the Magic off the floor. They need to keep playing like themselves.
Yeah, that's really all it is. And it's been a frustrating series so far. There's really no other way around it. This team that we know that won 60 games could really beat anyone during the regular season all of a sudden looks human. During all the wins, you would see supporting cast members like there's some we've got some comments about Dennis Jenkins. I think we have a question, so we might dive into that a little bit more, but he hasn't been as reliable off the bench. And I don't think JB Bickerstaff's rotations have been consistent enough or really just made sense enough to let this team get into a groove that they were able to do pretty much the whole season. And we can talk about some adjustments that he may or may not make, but I think his hand has been forced a little just because of foul trouble, of course, it always is. And just some play from some of the guys that you're looking to overall. So, I mean, still, I've said it before. I think that the Pistons are going to win this series, whether it's in 6 or 7 games now. But if they continue playing like they are, then it's going to be really tough and an uphill climb. And there's not much way around it. So I think they just need to wake up, remember who they are, throw these last few games out the window, and maybe just dissect that third quarter run in game 2, where, I mean, you're not going to go on a 30-3 run every game. That was pretty historic, but take what you've done well from that run, and then the fourth quarter run in game 3 that helped tie the game, and see what you can pull out from there. Obviously easier said than done, but this team has showed us all year that they can do it.
Yeah, and like with the rotation stuff too. So Richard brings it up, right? He says Cade definitely looked tired. I think Jenkins not being reliable has put a little extra pressure on him. I think you could kind of go up and down the roster. Like the bench minutes have just they've not been what they have been during the regular season. And there's not, it stinks, right? There's not much as a coach that you can do about that. Like it's not like there's, I don't know, some secret pairing that can just unlock Ron Holland off the bench, who didn't play in game 3. And honestly, I didn't love that decision, or Karis LeVert, right? Not getting as many minutes. Like, this is a team that has been 11 deep the vast majority of the season. And they've been able to do that because they've had 11 guys who play well when they get out there and get on the floor. And when you put Danis Jenkins in, and he struggles, which is fair, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Like, well, now you can't play him as much. When you put in Ron Holland and he makes a couple of boneheaded mistakes off the ball defensively, well, now you can't play him as much, right? All these possessions really matter. Same thing with Javonte Green. Same thing with, look, Isaiah Stewart has not been great this series. He's not. He's been amazing all season. His scoring's been up. He's rebounded the ball well. He's obviously been an incredible rim protector. And that rim protection's come along. But I don't think that his switchability has shown up as much as I would have liked it to at this point in the series, right? It's not like you just, the Magic Bolt's not playing Isaiah Stewart more, because when Jalen Duren sits down, Stu gets in there, he blocks a couple of shots. Yes, that's great. I don't want to discredit that, but he's nothing on offense right now. You can't lean on that. That's why they went to Paul Reed when they did there in game 3. They needed a little bit of energy and a little bit of offense boost, right? Like, it's not, they can't play deep if they don't have the horses that are going to allow them to play deep. If these guys aren't going to play the way that they have all season, they're kind of screwed here. So, again, like I keep bringing it up, but Richard earlier on said, hey, maybe this is just kind of the pressure of everything getting to everybody. I really think there might be something to that. I mean, this is the first time they've had expectations. They're the hunted now. They're not the hunters. They're not the underdogs coming into New York in Madison Square Garden thinking that they are better than their seed would represent that they are. That's the Magic now. That's not the Pistons. The Pistons won 60 games. The Pistons are the team that is trying to justify the fact that they've been the number 1 seed. They've been the number 1 in the Eastern Conference all season. And then now, the lights turn on. There's a lot of questions, and the Magic come out, they punch them in the mouth. And all of a sudden, everyone tightens up a little bit. Look, these guys are human, and I do think that there's something to that. I don't know what else it could be, honestly.
Yeah, and you'd almost prefer to be the underdog going into it that has nothing to lose. And I mean, if the Pistons do have an early exit from the postseason, I don't think it's the end of the world. It's obviously a disappointment, but you're not going to totally blow up this team because of one series or not commit to your all-star. But the good thing about that is over a 7-game series, and especially when the games are stretched out in between so many days, like there is time to get your your feet under you and bounce back. And I think that the Magic, like, there's not really any excuse that the Pistons could have for their play thus far in the series. But the Magic they got a huge win over the Hornets in the play-in tournament when everyone thought the Hornets were going to win, and penciled them in to the playoffs when they're in the play-in tournament. And the Magic had a pretty rough end to the season. And maybe they found something and they were able to keep that rolling in game one and punch the Pistons in the mouth, and they weren't able to bounce back, and they bounced back in game two. But I think you've just seen a lot that this will be a competitive series, obviously, at this point, but there is time to just throw everything away and bounce back and right the ship. But if you are going to right the ship, like, your all-star center needs to step up, and your first guy off the bench, who's one of the best rim protectors in the league, like, you need more out of him, because I thought Paul Reed did great in that stretch where JB Bickerstaff put him in. A couple silly fouls and stuff like that. But if you are looking to your third center, just because you don't think you can play your first two guys who are such a big part of your team, that's a huge problem, and hopefully not one we'll see over the rest of this series.
I mean, yeah, it kind of goes back to what we've been talking about since the start of the show. I mean, like, it's weird to say for a team that is down 2-1, but this Pistons team, when they're on their A game, is better than this Orlando Magic team. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, that's the frustration of this series. That's what's making this so challenging to watch as a Pistons fan. You know this. You see it. You see the stretches. You see the runs. You see what the team's capable of compared to this Magic team that is playing above their averages from the regular season. The Magic are playing really good compared to what they've been for 82 games. The Pistons are playing really poorly compared to what they've been through 82 games. I think both teams on their A game, the Pistons are going to win. The Pistons just haven't had their A game for a full 48 minutes yet. Let's talk about some of those rotation decisions. So this is a good one from Jacob Ball. We also have a live questions. We'll get to that next on a similar topic. But Jacob Ball in the DBB comments says, can you diagnose what might be going on with Danis Jenkins? He looked great in the regular season, but should we have expected this performance from a rookie on the big stage for the first time? Danis Jenkins is effectively a rookie, not literally in the books, right? But because he did play enough last season. But this is his first real year of NBA basketball with expectations. So is that what's going on with him there in the playoffs?
I mean, I think you are unfortunately having to rely on him a decent amount just because of all the questions on who is a secondary creator on this team, and all the backup point guard talk that we had going into the season. And obviously JB relied on him a lot in game one. He got 22 minutes, didn't go great, 1 for 7 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3. And then you see his minutes go down in the next couple games. And he hasn't, I mean, in game 3, he had a nice stretch in 7 minutes, but other than that, you haven't really got much there. So I do think there's a little bit to it of like adjusting to postseason basketball when you do have this huge responsibility on your shoulders. And I don't think JB should have just totally excluded him from the rotation just because of him not having that experience. I think you have to rely on him because he's been great at times over the regular season and played himself into an NBA deal. But I mean, I don't think we could have expected Danis to really like regress fully in the postseason, but I do think there is a little bit of it to just like adjusting to playoff basketball for the first time when you do have are really being called upon to be one of the, and pretty much the only creator off the bench, with Karis LeVert not getting many minutes.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that the story with Danis Jenkins is the same story for just about everyone on this roster that's not named Cade Cunningham or Asar Thompson so far, or Tobias Harris, but he's a vet, so that's not really the group that we're looking at here with this. But like I think Danis is pressing. Piper 423 brings it up here in the live chat. He tries too much when he comes off the bench. Yeah, I think he's pressing a little bit. I think Jalen Duren is pressing a little bit. We're going to talk about Ron Holland. We got a question here from Pistons fan 11 about whether or not he should play, and another live chat question that kind of gets around that same rotation topic. And I think it's the same thing. Like, I think the minutes he had in game 1 and 2, he was pressing a little bit. All these this is an incredibly young roster, and the playoffs are a crucible, man. This is a different type of basketball that all of these guys are going to have to play. And I get that a lot of them did play playoff basketball last year, but you got to realize that this is different. The expectations are different. The pressure is different. This is a team that is expected and expects themselves to make it all the way to at least the conference finals. And they're playing tense. They're playing tight. I mean, even Cade was getting into some of that there in game 3. This is all new for this group of guys. So if you want the positive spin of this, I think, look, if they figure this out, if they can kind of respond, come back, get together, play with one another in unison again like they have been all season, play within themselves and be the team that we've seen for 82 games, they're going to win the series. But I think that the bigger takeaway there is if that happens, if what we see over these next, let's say that they win 3 in a row, right? Like, let's just say that happens. If they figure this out and they figure out a way to play their A game and get everybody on the level that they were during the regular season, and they close out this series, I think that you get at that point, you go into the round 2 with so much confidence, because these are lessons. And I don't know if these guys are going to learn these lessons this playoff series. I don't know if that's going to happen, and that stinks. I won't lie to you. I'm disappointed as well, but they're going to learn them eventually. So whether it's this season, whether it's next season, what have you, young guys struggle in the playoffs most times, most cases. I think you got to be hopeful that they can figure it out this series and come out of this better for it. But if you don't, I think they're going to come out of this next season better for it too. So, I guess that's kind of a downside, right? That's not something I want to think about either. But listen, they're learning the hard way right now. It's sink or swim. And if they sink, that's a big time lesson. I think they come out better for it. If they swim, then great. They figured it out, and now they're looking really strong going into round 2. But I don't know. Do you disagree before we start talking a little bit about some of the specific rotation decisions and looking at Ron Holland not playing here?
No, I mean, I think that this series does provide a big opportunity. I mean, it always did. This team and just who's on the roster, like, hasn't won a playoff series. We haven't seen the franchise win a playoff series for a long time. But now that you find yourselves in the mud a bit and you have to work yourselves out of a hole, I think it will, if you come back and win this one, you can take a huge lesson from it and just gain some confidence going into the next round. And you never know. I said before, you can't feel good about this team moving forward in the postseason, even if they do come back and win this series, but you never know. And I mean, yeah, Joy brought up in the chat, if there's a lot riding on game 4 here. If the Pistons drop that one and go down 3-1, I mean, it's been done before, but it's incredibly tough to work yourselves back from a 3-1 hole. So game 4, if we don't see them return to the team that we've seen all year, then it's just tough. But I think the team knows that, and they are the more talented group. They should win this series. So if they don't, it does say a lot. So I think starting game 4 incredibly strong is huge and really will determine how this series goes. So we'll see how it nets out. I mean, the team knows it. Everyone knows it. We just have to see if it happens at this point.
Yeah, seeing this in the live chat too, it's growing pains, right? And I think that's a great way to phrase it. I think we're seeing growing pains, and hopefully they can figure it out, get through that now. This series, if they can't, then it's growing pains, for next year. But I do want to put in one little footnote because I agree with you, and I can feel like I can sense that many listeners won't. You keep saying the Pistons are more talented than the Magic. I actually agree with you. The prevailing wisdom is that is not the case, right? That you got Franz Wagner, you got Desmond Bane, you got Paolo Banchero. The Magic are
more
the more
potential all-stars.
They do. I get that, and I hear it. I can hear it coming from the comment section, even though they're not saying it. But I do. I actually agree with you. I think that the Pistons are a better team. They play better. They did have 2 all-stars this year. They might have 2 all-NBA players. They have the best player in the series. I think Jalen Duren at his best is as good as maybe like a Franz Wagner at his best. There's no Desmond Bane facsimile here for the Pistons, but the Pistons should be deeper, right? Like I think the collection of talent, I actually do think is better in Detroit than it is in Orlando. But let's look about the rotations here. So MC313, why is Ron Holland not playing in certain stretches? Where was Asar in game 2? Pistons fan 11, should Ron Holland be playing more? What do you think about some of the rotation tightening that JB Bickerstaff has done?
It's been confusing at times, honestly. I mean, I think at some points his hands have been tied because of fouls or just people not being able to get anything going offensively. There was some talk about Ron Holland specifically in the chat. I think, and how he's erratic on offense, and yes, he brings energy on defense, but it's very risk reward. And I think what JB has shown us is, especially in crunch time, he leans more toward having offensive threats on the floor, and he thinks that the defense can stay afloat without Asar Thompson. Like we saw Asar Thompson not finish game 1. We've seen him off the floor in the fourth quarter, and honestly, it's not something I agree with. And I think there's a larger discussion there on if you're not going to be able to trust him in fourth quarters for the majority of them, or to finish games, like, are you going to extend him over the offseason, which I always thought they would. But it's an interesting, and maybe the front office disagrees with how JB is managing it. So we'll see how that all plays out. So I think I wish the rotations were a little bit tighter and less like erratic, because Karis LeVert getting 4 minutes and 4 decent minutes and then not playing the rest of the game just doesn't make much sense to me. Maybe someone else could get in a rhythm if Karis is never going to be a true part of the rotation. So it has been confusing at times, I think, which, like Wes, you mentioned earlier, you didn't love Ron Holland not playing in game 3. Like, I agree with you. I wish he would have got a few minutes at least, but it's tough when you're trying to tighten rotations and you're trying to get sparks on offense, and Ron Holland can be that guy, but more often than not at this stage of his career, he's not. So I guess it's not like astounding to me that Ron Holland didn't play. I wish he did. So I'm just looking for a little more consistency, because I've just been confused to this point through the series.
Yeah, I have a little bit too. I mean, I don't think that JB's like losing him the series or anything right now. Some of these rotation decisions are just a coach reaching for something, like the team's not playing the way that they should be playing. They aren't. And so the coach is trying to spark that. There have been weird lineup combinations. There have been pairings that we've seen that we just haven't happened very often in the regular season. And what is that? That's JB trying to get something going with these guys, and they've just not responded to that. But on that note, like, I'm with you. I liked the game 3 adjustment to play Asar Thompson more. I thought that was smart. I think that turned out really well. I want more Ron Holland, and I get that he's kind of a roller coaster still, but I think you need the roller coaster. I think this Pistons team has created chaos all season, and then now to abandon some of that chaos creation because maybe every now and then you give up a backdoor cut. I mean, like, I'm not saying like the backdoor cut's okay, and you don't want that to be consistent. If he gives up a bunch of them, then okay, great, like pull the plug. But it's been a couple. It's been here or there, and he creates a bunch of fast break opportunities. Ron Holland does, which this team I think desperately needs right now. Easy buckets in the fast break. So I didn't like that move. I think that the chaos that Ron creates is actually a little bit needed here in terms of an energy spark. I would like to see, actually, and something we haven't seen a lot of, I would like to see more Isaiah Stewart at the 4 next to Jalen Duren. I think that Isaiah Stewart's a real good matchup for Paolo Banchero. And I'm just, I don't know, I'm a little surprised that we haven't seen more of that take place here. I get that you're losing a lot of offense with Tobias Harris going to the bench in those instances. And I get that Jalen Duren through 3 games has not picked up the slack, right? When he's out there as someone that's really being asked to score a bunch like he had been all season. But what I'll say is, maybe you take the life vest away and ask him to swim in the deep end. Maybe that does get him going a little bit, as counterintuitive as that might seem. And I do think leaning into a 5-man group of, like, I don't know, let's say Cade, Kevin Huerter, Asar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren. It'll be a little tight offensively. It will, but that's a solid defensive lineup. Maybe that's what gets you going. Maybe having a little bit more fast break opportunities because you get more stops. Maybe telling Duren, look, we're going to live and die with you. That's it. It's you, right? Maybe putting all that on his plate does get a response because we've seen him respond well to that earlier this season. Maybe that's what he needs, that kind of kick in the pants, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But that is something I think I'd like to see more of. More Isaiah Stewart at the 4, more taking the training wheels away situations for Duren, like, and supporting him by not supporting him, so to speak. I think I'd like to see more of those 2 things specifically.
Yeah, I think it's taking a little bit of just the identity of who this team is away. And we were talking going into the postseason of what does JB do with his rotations, just because you've gotten a ton of support and contributions from 11 guys, and who could be the odd man out, and should you shorten your playoff rotations just because that's a narrative? That's what the broad amount of teams do. And I think if the first few games of the series have told us anything, then it's maybe you don't just continue what made you successful in the season. And I think Ron Holland certainly provides something that a ton of other players on this team don't. And he's a huge part of this defensive identity. So if you just don't have that anymore, it's tough for sure. I mean, I get what JB is trying to do, but I'd be pretty surprised if we don't see Ron Holland, at least for a decent stretch in game 4.
Agreed. Last thing before we wrap this on up, Piper423 brings up in our live chat that Asar Thompson has been good, but the Magic are doubling Duren and clogging the paint because he's a zero threat from outside. This is true. And this has been true for 82 games, so it's not new. That's what I keep going back to with this. It's like, we're seeing it in the playoffs against something that we've seen the Pistons overcome for 82 games. And then now suddenly that they're not overcoming it because Jalen Duren is not playing like the guy he's been all year. Now it's a spacing problem again. No. I would stop short of that. I think this is a Pistons problem. I just don't think that they're responding to it in the way that they have been all year. For example, Asar Thompson, where did the stampede drives go? Right? Where has he catches it, his guy is giving him 15 feet of space, and he just eats up the space, gets all the way to the rim or to 10 feet away, makes a little kickoff or a dump off pass. We saw it exactly, to my memory, once in game 3, and it ended with a Jalen Duren alley-oop, right? He's done that all year, and he's been really good at it. He's worked the baseline like he has all in this series all year, and he's been very good at it. They've been able to go into high-low stuff with Asar Thompson playing low and Jalen Duren out in the mid-range. They've not been able to do that because the guys just they're not playing up to their own standard. So here's what I think we finish out on this, Blake. Put a bow on it. A couple of things the Pistons need to do to win game 4 and beyond. Few sentences.
Well,
what do you got?
I mean, it's easy to go to the Jalen Duren of it. So I think that's the biggest thing. So I won't do that. I mean, I think the game 3 adjustment with Asar Thompson was, and yes, Asar had a great first half offensively. So maybe that went a little bit into it, and you're not going to get that every game. But I do think just continuing to play your guy who was a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year should be, will almost certainly be first team all defense. Play him in the fourth quarter in close games. We didn't really get to see that in game 2 just because the Pistons separated themselves with that third quarter run. So other than the Jalen Duren of it, I'd just say continue to lean on and rely on Asar Thompson because he's a total game changer in any series or any game this team plays.
I love it. That was going to be one of mine too. So I'll give you 3 bullet points in the order that I would like to see them. Cut out the turnovers, get Jalen Duren to the free throw line, and then lean into that defensive identity. So you lean into that by playing Asar Thompson as much as you did in game 3. You lean into that by getting Ron Holland out there and asking him to cause some havoc and make Franz Wagner's day just a living hell, right? That's what you do. You play Stu out there at the 4, and now you got 2 rim protectors out there. You continue jumping and trying to block every single shot. Hey, close out short on Wendell Carter Jr. Close out short on Jalen Suggs. Close out short on Franz Wagner. If those guys beat you from 3, they beat you, right? So stop giving up drives to the hoop. Lean into it. I think if the Pistons can do those 3 things consistently, there's no reason they can't rattle off 3 wins in a row. They have to do it, though. So that's what I would like to see. In the order that I would like to see them. Cut out the turnovers, get Jalen Duren to the free throw line, lean into that defensive identity, which they're already starting to do. That's my prescription.
Game 4 is a big one. So we'll see what happens in that. And hopefully, like I said, I'm still confident that they're going to win this series. If not, it would be a huge disappointment, but there's still, over the 7-game series, time to right all the wrongs that we've seen and just come out strong and assert yourselves as the dominant force in this series. But shout out to everyone for joining us in the postseason madness.
Real quick, Blake. Sorry, I got to give a shout out to a fella. He left us a couple of voicemails after game 2, and I was a terrible host and I forgot to play them. So shout out to a fella. We've got your questions there, and we heard them. We're sorry we didn't play them out here on the actual show for you. We'll play them next week, even though we won't probably answer it since it'll be pretty dated at that point. And of course, if you send us another voicemail, or anybody wants to leave us a voicemail, I promise to be a better host and play them out. So that's my bad, guys, but wanted to shout him out.
Oh yeah, no worries. We were a little delayed on recording. So yeah, shout out to a fella for using the voice line. And anyone can call that number, ask a question, hear your voice on the show. The number for that is 313-355-2717. Special thanks to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. And shout out to you guys for all the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all.